Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Games series and our Crazy Leela series. This is a night odds game, actually from a fair while back. I've just had it in my list of games to do, and I finally got around to doing it. It's a really interesting one because it's against a very strong blitz player. I think it just sort of shows how things are often going between Leela at odds and very strong players, that you don't particularly see the engine evaluation decreasing that much. But I think what you feel is that the risk and the difficulty of playing the opponent's position is rising and rising, and then eventually something falls apart. And you see a lot of games like this by Leela at odds, rook and knight against the strongest players. And this is a really nice example of that. Let's have a look at it. So e4, c5, d3, e5, knight c3, knight c6, g3. Leela plays a lot of these slow fianchetto systems against the Sicilian. Black decided to throw in an h5, and Leela actually ignored it. In normal chess, Leela's normally stopping a rook's pawn advance with h4. Here, Leela just leaves it, presumably feeling that, this sort of thing just unbalances the position. So, yeah, might as well allow it. Yeah, the engine's of course keen to play h3 in this position. That's what they like doing with the rook's pawn. But black played d6 here. And then now white played something quite interesting. Knight d5 here. Putting the knight in d5. Yeah, what are you doing? Well, you're maybe going to play c3, b4, maybe c3, d4, maybe f4. But also you're trying to maybe dissuade black from developing in some way. It's an interesting line. Knight g7 played by black. Maybe wanted to avoid knight f6, bishop g5, though I don't know. Doesn't look too scary really. I mean, just go bishop e7. Not quite sure why black wouldn't want to go knight f6. The engines didn't particularly want to do it either, though. So knight e7 played, and now bishop g5. You tend to find that Leela is always playing, these sort of irritating moves. The idea is that, you get the f6 out, and then you put the bishop back on d2. Leela's always trying to, anything that sort of weakens, loosens, Leela's always for it. One interesting idea that Torch played was to play the move knight b4. It's a known idea, but just to try and exchange off this knight on c6 for the knight on d5. And that was quite an interesting little idea. But okay, f6 was played. It's not too bad. Bishop d2. Black took on g3, maybe a little bit early. The engines didn't see any particular need to rush with it, and it's probably true. But f takes g3 played by Leela. It's opening a file, so that's why Leela's interested like that. And then black took on d4 and played knight d4. Maybe knight e7 was a little bit more circumspect. I mean, the knight's not really going to be able to remain on d4 for very long. It's going to get chased away by c3. So knight e7 is maybe a little bit more sensible. Looking for bishop h3. That seems quite normal, but knight d4 was played. It's not too bad. Here Leela did something interesting, which was the move g4. And g4 is stopping black from swapping off another minor piece with bishop h3. It's also taking away the f5 square from the knight. So actually, there's some sort of threat of white playing a4 and then c3 to trap the knight. And, well, black's got to take some action against it. The engines actually were looking at playing f5, with the idea of following up with queen h4, which is quite nice. I mean, it sort of frees black a little bit. I mean, white gets the pawn on f5 in this way, but you go queen h4 and you go bishop e7, and you go knight c7, bishop d7, maybe castle queenside. You're getting yourself, you're fighting back a little bit at white here. Black's knight b5 was a little bit passive, maybe. a4, knight c7, queen f3. But okay. After 14 moves, black's still solid, black's still standing, black's still got the extra piece. There's no immediate danger on black's position. But yeah, to sort of say that black's made definite inroads and has got a clear plan about what to do, that's more difficult to say. So after queen f3, black played queen d7. hitting the pawn on g4 there. White played h3, and now black played a5. I was a bit sceptical about a5, I have to say, but the engines are kind of for it, really. I mean, the idea is that black wants to stop white from breaking on the queen side and get that potentially as a safe place for the king. Not necessarily by castling queen side, maybe just by playing the king manually over. But yeah, they see this as a pretty good move. So quite interesting, actually, quite a good decision. C3, B6, and now a really interesting moment because the engines were sort of letting black play bishop B7, then white plays C4 to defend the D5 pawn and carrying on really. But the problem with playing C3 to C4 is that there's no more breaks on the queen side or the king side. Then the black's really got a safe place on the queen side for the king and can start thinking slowly about expanding. Leela's really keen to avoid playing C4, wants to have the future possibility of a B4 break or a D4 break. And so Leela plays the move Queen D1 in order to meet Bishop B7 with Queen B3. So really, really nice idea. I mean, also attacking the pawn on B6 as well. But the whole idea of no, we're not going to let you close everything up. We're going to ensure that you really have to fight in order to close the position. That's a really nice idea from Leela. So after Bishop B7, Queen B3 was played. Rook b8 and now rook f2, and this is always what Leela does nicely. Somehow seems to judge quite nicely when it's time to rush and when you can just do a sort of a slow build up here, and that's what Leela does. B5 played by black, and now rook af1. Yeah, you don't know, you're not sure what the exact value of that is going to be, but okay, there's a half open file, you're putting pressure on there. It'll come in useful later. I mean, maybe white will play g5 later. Black played the move b4, which the engines seem to feel is the right thing to do anyway. I mean, you're trying to sort of influence white to play c4 somehow and block things up. But Leela plays d4. Leela's just all for opening up the position there. And yeah, I mean, the engines are still saying, -3 for white. But I mean, just from the human perspective then, which is kind of important, you're sort of feeling, what? This is a bit of a weird position, right? I mean, black hasn't got himself castled. No particular feeling that you really want to castle kingside. That looks a little bit exposed. But, white isn't opening the whole position yet, but has got some chances of doing it. I mean, yeah, it's not feeling as comfortable as the starting position, put it that way. I mean, black played bishop a6, rook e1, and then played c takes d4. I can understand that decision. The engines are saying you could wait a little while, but obviously you are a bit nervous about a d takes c5, and then afterwards a d6 happening somehow and opening up lines. So I can understand. I can understand that you played c takes d4 there. And then rook c8 from black. So yeah, I mean, white isn't really at black's throat here, but on the other hand, what on earth is black doing to white's position? Not obvious to see. So it's very much a question now of who comes up with a plan. And bishop e4 is a nice move. The downside of having played c takes d4 here is that the queen is now protecting the h3 pawn along the third rank. So white can now play the move bishop e4, and that's quite nasty. We've got a bishop g6, we've got a bishop f5 coming in. So black played the move knight a8, and yeah, I mean, basically black's saying, okay, take my rook, that'll be fine. But Leela's just never interested in this sort of material stuff. Leela's just going to come round, plays the move queen f3. And if queen takes a4, then queen f5 and queen g6 is going to happen. So black plays knight b6, and then white plays b3. And, for me, I'm looking at this position, I'm thinking, yeah, I just don't know what black's doing with that extra piece, right? I mean, I can't see a clear plan for black. But the engines are still saying -3.57. So, there's nothing wrong. Black's position is still pretty safe somehow. But okay, I mean, you've got to do something about a threat like bishop f5 to e6, and there's also g5 coming in. Black played the move rook c7. The engines prefer bishop b7 just to, hit that pawn on d5 early on. But bishop f5, queen c7, Yeah, the engines are saying g5 now, which looks quite dangerous. Bishop e6, not so stupid either. Yeah, I'm struggling to see why I should be happy with black here. Why I should be have a minus 3.57 feeling. I don't have that at all. Rook c7 played by black just to get out of the material win, but now g5. And yeah, okay, I understand there's no immediate mate, but still, lines are opening, and I don't see what I'm doing with black. And actually, the white position has improved now. Queen a8, we're down to -2 for white, but okay, still looking quite decent. D takes c5 now from Leela, and yeah, the idea is if f takes c5, we'll go bishop e4, and we're going to be thinking about invading here. Amazingly enough, the engine's still saying no, black's fine, still much better, but it's just really hard to understand, isn't it? D takes c5 was played. Bishop g6, just finally stopping the king from castling. And now bishop e3, and we're hitting this this knight on b6. And this is actually the crucial moment, really. At this position, the engines are still claiming that you can go knight takes d5 in this position. Rook d2, bishop b7, rook ed1, rook d7, bishop f5, bishop c6. And they feel that black should be able to survive. The point is, if you take back here, and yeah, sacrificing everything on here isn't leading to a win. And otherwise, it's not easy for white to increase the pressure on black's position. But yeah, I mean, playing a move like knight takes d5 is really hard. And by now, this is kind of the last chance for an advantage, basically. I mean, you can understand that black was not at all keen to do that, however strong he is. And he played the move knight c8. And then, yeah, you might want to pause the video, work out what Leela did in this position. It was rather evil. Leela hit black with the very unpleasant move d6. So the queen is unprotected. All of a sudden, that's happened because the bishop on e3 has chased away the knight on b6. And now d6, we're attacking the queen, and we're also attacking the rook as well. And black actually resigned or lost on time here. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, this is actually only slightly better for white. But obviously, you'd sort of bet on Leela's chances of finishing off this game, considering how far you started off the game with a piece less somehow. So to move to a slight advantage, you feel that black wouldn't necessarily be able to stop white from going further with that. But it's one of those things where yeah, players get they're obviously, well, I think they're quite confused, at what's all happened, and then the blow hits them, and then they resign. Whereas yeah, forgetting somehow that they started up in material, so losing material is never quite as catastrophic as you might think. But yeah, this very, very strong player had seen enough somehow. Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting game somehow. It's just very interesting to see the difference between the torch and the stockfish evaluation and your own feeling about what's happening in the game. And I mean, that's always a little bit dangerous. You've got to be careful. It can be influenced by the result of the game and all that. But, I do think that, looking at this sort of position, you're not getting a feeling of, oh, this is just as good as when we started. This is really a feeling of, my goodness, black's under pressure. And yeah, that's just something that the normal engines just aren't able to show us. But that's the sort of thing that Leela is playing on all the time. With its odds play, simply able to keep on triggering these sort of positions where eventually, black's still doing okay objectively, but you're only going to survive with unbelievably risky looking moves. And that's yeah, obviously that's really, really difficult for humans. Difficult enough at 15 plus 10, and especially difficult at these 3 or 5 minute time controls. So there we are, another great win for Leela at odds. Hope you're enjoying these. I've got a few real corkers to come still, so do stay tuned for that. And yeah, hope to see you at the next videos. Thanks for watching.